Welcome to the Lions Den. Today we will be recapping the Lions' loss in the divisional round to the Washington Commanders, as well as Ben Johnson taking the head coaching job for the Chicago Bears, and looking ahead to some pending free agents and the draft slightly. This isn't going to be a fun episode. Uh, Neither of us really want to make this, but it happens. So. I mean, yeah, they lost 45 to 31, just completely outplayed, outcoached, outclassed in every facet of the game. Do you want to start with this?
It, you know, I didn't think I'd say this, but it got to the point where, we were driving down the field and we had like a point one chance to win that game. And it got to the point where, even if we won that game, I felt like we didn't even deserve it.
Yeah.
Like,
Washington is
we,
clearly the better team.
they deserved that win. They
Hmm.
played their butts off. I was sick. Like,
Yeah, it was really
um,
bad.
I think with the NFC Championship, I think it was like we were that close to going to a Super Bowl, but I didn't expect us to. This
Yeah, it
year,
was
I
house money.
expected
It was house money. This year wasn't. This year the expectation was to the
at
bare
least to win a
minimum get to
playoff
the
game.
NFC Championship. Yeah, win a playoff
Yeah,
game.
and I think I said this to you, but this is just gonna it's just gonna be another lesson of Lions fans is that honestly, the one seed don't matter.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter in the way we think it does. You need to end up performing in the playoffs anyway.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean, you can't take these games for granted. Man,
we
it
talked about
just
it last week. Like, not to take or the week before, whatever, after the Vikings game, to not take this team for granted or like the happiness because it's the NFL and it's only one of the four professional sports where it's one game in the playoffs. Every other one is like 3 to 7, usually the
yeah,
best team wins. But in the NFL, like we talked about it, on paper, the Lions were as good or better at every single thing. And it didn't matter because they just didn't show up in this one game. And uh, the Commanders they took advantage of it. And like I said, just completely, it's not one person to blame. It was like everyone, every coach, every player. Um, yeah, nah, Jaden Daniels too. Jaden Daniels was amazing. I couldn't believe how good he was.
I
Even
will.
when the Lions were covering his receivers well, he was fitting it into tight windows. He had that throw to De'Ami Brown where I think
Yes,
Kindle Vildor was literally like covering his face, and I mean, he just put it in the perfect spot. Yeah, Jane Daniels is going to be a threat, but that Commanders team isn't nearly as talented as the Lions, and that's what sucks
yeah,
about it.
yeah. They are a legitimate threat next year,
Yeah,
and I think it's a legitimate conversation to have. That I think Jane Daniels could be like within the next year or two. He could be. He might already be the best quarterback in the NFC.
I was just about to say that. I think by the end of next year, I think he'll be the undisputed QB1 in the NFC. If I mean, but then again, I mean, CJ Stroud kind of like you could have said like CJ Stroud is going to be top five, and look how that worked. But on this trajectory, like Jaden Daniels is awesome.
That's why I said like 1 to 2 years. I think,
Yeah, yeah,
like you got to give him some time. But
yeah,
even CJ Stroud didn't do this. I
yeah,
mean, this is special. So,
yeah.
and not to mention the fact that Stroud didn't have the leg. He doesn't have the legs that Daniels
No, Daniels
has.
is a
And
true
honestly,
playmaker.
Daniels didn't even use his legs too much in this game. That's what,
No, I think he had
like
like 35 rushing yards or something like that.
I think the Lions over prepared for that. I think their defense over prepared, which honestly probably wasn't a bad idea because we suck against running quarterbacks. But I just saw that we weren't getting off of zone coverage, and I was like,
Yeah,
just get back onto man coverage. These receivers, other than Terry McLaurin, are not a threat when
yeah,
on man coverage.
yeah.
So I was really frustrated with that. But
Yes.
so
To start the game, Amik Robertson snapped his arm in half. You could see it on the broadcast. His arm was just like bent. Yeah, not a great start. That kind of, like when that happened, I'm just like, I don't know. I just didn't feel. I mean, you have Kendall Vildor and Terry and Arnold out there, a rookie corner and a practice squad corner, and I mean, it showed the Ifatu at one point. I mean, Amik Robertson, Ifatu Melifonwu, and Brian Branch were all out at this point in the game, or at one point in the game. I mean, the only guys that you had left were Kirby and Terry on from like that were supposed to be uh any kind of impact players in the secondary at the beginning of the season. The defense in general was just bad. They got that fourth down stop at the beginning of the game when they did that weird thing. That was kind of a miscommunication with Mariota on the commander side, and then they forced one punt, and I mean that was it. I don't know how many fourth downs the Commanders converted, but if, on third and fourth down, it was just a guarantee that they were gonna get it. Like I know at the end of the game, even though the Lions' offense was looked like they were trying to come back, I mean, I just had no faith because the defense couldn't stop anyone.
I mean, what really stood out to me in this game was just that we had such a terrible run defense,
Yeah,
and it's one that I haven't really seen before. Like Brian Robinson was going up the middle at will. Like he was getting 8, 8, 10, 12 yards per
yeah.
chunk on up the middle gut plays. I'm like, dang, dude.
Yeah, he
I
averaged
will
five
say
yards an
this though.
attempt, which is his highest of the year, it looks like. So,
I will say this. I blame most of the defense on Aaron Glenn. And I'm not one to do that. Like, I'm not one to call Aaron Glenn out because I think he's done a good job with the resources he's had this year. He's had some really bad, really bad
mhm.
instances with players and all that. But dang, dude, I mean, I mentioned this to you like just before we went on, but that Terry McLaurin screenplay was one of the worst defensive play calls I've seen this year by him.
Yeah, they
He
were
had
just
two
full
guys
out
on
blitz. Yeah,
he had two guys on trips. He had Brian Branch coming off the edge, which he probably did 70% of the time throughout the game, which never worked. And I mean, he had to expect that Kirby Joseph was going to run all the way down the field to catch Terry. Like, I know you can't, like, you don't know what the play is going to be. Like, ultimately, like, he might not have thought it was going to be a screen. But when you have two outside corners on trips, that makes no sense to me. Like, I was hot at that play. That one in particular just made me hot.
yeah.
And just the execution of tackling. Like I feel like this year we haven't had too much of a problem with tackling, but for some reason this game we did. I mean, I don't know. They just
Yeah,
did not show up to play.
it was a lack of adjustment from from Aaron Glenn and the whole defensive coaching staff. I mean, they just didn't have any answers. Like it didn't get any better towards the end of the game. Another thing is that 12 men on the field, when they had
Yeah,
12 men on the field, like at the same time, all right, they had, so that was that time that Branch and Iffy were out. They had Maurice Norris out there, who's a just got pulled up from the practice squad, and Stanley Thomas Oliver. I have no idea who Stanley Thomas Oliver is. I don't know when that dude got on the roster. I don't know if he's on the roster, if he's on the practice squad. Like, I have no idea who he is. And I mean, but at the same time, like you could see, they showed the replay, and okay, for those who don't know what we're talking about, there was like 4th and 2 from like the 5 yard line, and the Lions had 12 men on the field, and it got called, and they showed the replay, and you could see Calvin Shepard and the defensive coaching
yeah,
staff like trying to get them off. And I mean, this is part of the injury problem because you have like I'm sure the 12th guy in the field was one of those two, Maurice Norris or uh, Thomas Oliver or whatever his name is, and like I know that assistant coaches can't call timeouts, but Dan and so Glenn has got to get Dan to call the timeout. Like if you don't call a timeout there, when are you going to call it? You know what I mean? Like that's
yeah,
the most important. Yeah, that was bad. Yeah, the defense all around. I mean, you could pick out bright spots on the offense. We'll talk about that, but the defense was, I mean, other than that fourth down stop at the beginning of the game, that was the only time I like had something positive to say about the defense. Not
yeah.
not good.
Not good.
Yep, it sucks. Yeah, I mean that it ends that way. I mean, I'm not blaming this loss on injuries, like, but at some point, yeah, especially in this game, you could just see that the injuries on the defense was just too much, especially when Robertson went down. I mean, like I felt like after the Bills game, both of us were pretty deflated, and I kind of accepted that, injuries, this just might not be the year, and that showed too. And I'm not blaming everything on that. Like the Lions should have won that game for sure.
Yes.
I mean, they were favored by what, 8.5, 9.5 points, but yeah, just
I
tough.
mean, I think I have the same I think I have the same view of this game as Dan does, like Dan Campbell. It's just you go like a full season and you have this view of what's going to happen in the future. You see
Hmm.
yourself lifting the Lombardi trophy. You see yourself
Yeah,
even getting to a Super Bowl and you don't even win a playoff game. I think to
yeah.
me, that's just what cuts deep the most. And I saw a comparison to I think it was the 2014 Packers. I don't know. I might be getting the year wrong, but they were a 15-win team
Hmm.
and they lost in the first round. It's like
Yeah,
now we're the Packers. Like
yeah.
I don't I have more faith in this team to get out of that headspace, but I mean, man, like we choked away the NFC Championship. We choked that, and we choked away this playoff game.
This is worse though, in my opinion, because last year, the even
It's
if we
worse
beat,
because we have
even if we,
expectations.
yeah, that's the thing. Like, okay, don't get me wrong. Like, I was more hurt over the other of the Niners game, but that might have just been because it happened first. But like, even if we beat the Niners were a more talented team than us, right? Last year, like, I think
Oh
everyone
yeah,
could agree with that.
I didn't even expect us to win that game. Like
Yeah,
I
no, yeah. This year, I mean, like I said, that Jane Daniels is awesome, but that the Commanders team isn't as that talented as we made them look, I guess, or how they performed. And yeah, props to Dan Quinn and
honestly,
that coaching staff, Cliff Kingsbury, because man, they
I
had
didn't
a
know
near
they were
perfect
that
game.
good.
Yeah.
Like I mean, we saw the Eagles game and they were poised, but this is
Hmm.
the playoffs. It's a whole new animal, and it's I mean the Commanders are going to be scary next year. So,
Yeah.
but you want to get onto the offense?
Yep. All right. This is what sucks the most. 5 turnovers. If the Lions turn the ball over 2 or 3 times, I think they win this game. That's the crazy
Yeah.
part.
I mean, it
Um,
depends on which ones, but
yeah, but the ones that were avoidable, I guess, that weren't like, I mean, the first turnover, we both just couldn't believe on that 3rd and 1, the Goff fumble that they were in an empty
yeah,
set.
yeah.
Goff had no, I mean, Graham Glasgow, we'll talk about him later, but he just got blown up
Hmm.
and Goff had nowhere to go and that ball got stripped out and that completely flipped the game because don't, I'm not mistaken, the Lions could have gone up by 2 possessions there if they would have scored a
Yeah,
touchdown. And they were marching up the field fine. The Lions, I don't like, I'm not prepared for this. I don't have stats just because I don't even really care. But the Lions were moving the ball. Like they were moving the ball all game. But yeah, just you don't even have to run it. Just have Montgomery kicked out wide, have Montgomery there to either block to protect Goff or just a little check down.
just throw them
It's
out
third and
there.
one. And this is a We'll talk. I'll just group this one back in the JMO pass play. What in the hell?
That
I
was
mean,
yeah.
I I'm
I
a
don't think it was
proponent
a
of trick
bad call.
plays.
I don't think it was a terrible call, but the thing is JMO's got to know not to do that.
Here's
I
the thing.
think that's not
I
all JMO's fault. I think it's 75% though. If
I
you don't
I
see the guy, just run it. You're one of the fastest players in the NFL. Just run the ball. I mean, the worst you can get is like maybe 2 yards to that point. It's like just
yeah.
run the
I'll just
ball.
not turn the ball over. It was first down. It was first
Yeah.
and 10. So I was a fine with the trick plays, but like I I don't know. I know that Antoine Randall is our wide receiver coach, and he famously threw a touchdown in the Super Bowl. I do not understand the thought process of them thinking, hey, if Jamo gets the ball and Amon-Ra is not open, he'll just throw it away. He could have been
Yeah, that's true.
quadruple covered, and Jamison Williams is probably the last player on the earth to throw that ball away. He's gonna throw that ball.
That's
I don't
true.
get it. I'm fine with the trick plays, but I just like Jamison Williams, who's probably never thrown a pass. I mean, who knows? Like maybe he did in high school, but. and like down and like the reverses were fine. Like do a flea flicker, just like either run it or get the ball in Goff's hands. Like I was fine with the end around where he obviously because he scored like a 70-yard touchdown, but in that one, I mean the worst thing is you lose like 7 yards and he gets
Yeah.
tackled. But I don't know. I mean we'll get to Ben Johnson later, but just in a vacuum, I mean Ben Johnson is it was the best offensive coordinator in the NFL for the last 2 years. If there was one nitpicking, not just one, like this is the big thing that I've had a problem with him is that he just gets too cute.
Yes, he does.
And as awesome as a play caller as he is, sometimes he doesn't eat the vegetables and he just, like I mean, goes to the dessert, which is trick plays in this analogy and when they don't need to be in these risky trick plays. I don't know. I mean, I seriously, I couldn't believe it when I was watching that JMO. When I was watching that play,
Yeah.
I truly couldn't believe what I was watching. Down 10, and the game was still in the reach. Like
Yeah.
all you have to do is
I
get one
mean,
stop. You score, you kick a field goal, get one stop, go touchdown. Like it's a tie game. Yeah, I that was really bad.
I think I would say that play call was as undisciplined as Jimo's interception. Okay, maybe it's 50-50 now that I look at it, but for me,
I understand. Like I just don't know why they would ever ask JMO of that. Like
that's
make that
true. Like,
Montgomery. Okay, do it like Montgomery. Like I get that.
yeah,
I get that they were trying to set it up because he had that touchdown, so they were trying to scare him by giving to JMO. But Montgomery was a quarterback in college. He's thrown a pass before. Like St. Brown would throw the ball away. He's mature
yeah,
enough to do that. I just don't. I can't get the process of letting JMO throw the ball in that. Like that's something that that you should have done against the 49ers, maybe. And
yeah,
like
that's
in that
true.
game where it doesn't really matter or earlier in the regular season. But like, yeah, I mean, we spent a while on this, but I seriously, I couldn't believe that. That was the worst call I've ever seen Ben Johnson make. And yeah, I mean,
I mean, you already talked about the Goff empty set. That was another play that I was just hot at.
yeah, didn't make sense. Once again,
Just
too
made
cute.
no
Just
sense. And you put your quarterback in danger. Like I'll say this about Jared Goff. Because we do have Jared Goff written down.
mhm.
For me, Jared Goff in this game, I don't look at his game as terrible for me personally. That fumble he had, I don't think he can help a fumble there.
I
I
mean,
mean,
Graham Glasgow got completely pancaked. Jared Goff had nothing, and because he went empty set, he couldn't check it down. There was nothing there. It just
and
happened in an instant.
it
And
was a terrible play call. I
yeah,
mean, gee whiz, you put empty set with 3rd and 1? Like that's insane to me. And not to mention the fact that again, it's just 3rd and 1 and you have one of the best like bull rush running backs in the league.
yeah, and
And then
and
you
and
have one of the best
kicking him out.
thunderbolts in the league. Like,
Yeah, I
gee
mean,
whiz,
kicking
dude.
Montgomery out into the flat takes away. I mean, that takes away the element of the run. I mean, obviously, but now the Commanders are like, oh, well, they're passing for sure. So
And not
just like
he
keep him
can't
there.
even
There's so many benefits to keeping him there. Even if you don't run the ball, just
yeah.
keep him there.
And he can't even it's not like he can't go out for a pass, but he's gonna go out from the backfield. And that's probably what he should have done anyway. But for me, Goff, I think realistically, um, I think 2 interceptions. I mean, that last one obviously didn't really matter to seal the game, but that Sandstrom one to Williams. How do you feel about that interception? Like, I don't think that was that
I thought it was a
terrible.
touchdown. I
Really?
thought that it was going to be a touchdown.
I just thought it was a good play by
It was a good play
Sandstrom.
by Sanderson, but I thought Jamo should have kind of like cut in. He kind of flattened
Yeah,
out, and Sanderson jumped into that. Like I've noticed this about Jamo, as awesome as he's been, he doesn't necessarily get the ball at the catch point. Like he kind of waits for the ball to come to him.
that's
And I
true.
feel like if he stepped in front of that, yeah, that one was weird. I mean, you could blame it on Goff, you could blame it on Jamo. I mean, it was a great play by Sanders still,
I mean,
but
obviously that pick six
I
was
didn't
his
think it was
fault.
egregious. Yeah, the pick six
Yeah,
was completely his fault. That was
that
really bad.
that was the worst throw I've seen him have in a
Yeah,
while. And
completely airmailed it.
not to mention the refs just didn't call that one call. I
Yeah,
mean,
that was bad.
I'm not gonna result to the calls because the Commanders they won this game outright. But That there were some bad calls in this
I mean,
game
it's not even
on
worth
both
talking
sides.
about. Like the Lions
Yeah,
lost this game themselves. I don't really feel like talking about the refs. I mean, I don't
yeah,
want to be a Packers fan or a Vikings fan. I mean, we lost this game fair and
yeah.
square. Not really much to complain about. I didn't. Jared Goff, he wasn't good, but some of the. I mean, if you
Not to
didn't
mention
watch this,
That Montgomery face mask. That
yeah,
was
okay, yeah,
terrible.
yeah.
That
The
was
refs weren't
bad.
great. That So if you didn't watch this game and you just saw what like the media was talking about and what was happening on social media, like you would think that Goff just completely lost this game by himself. Even like I've seen some Lions fans be like, "Oh, I don't know if we can win a Super Bowl with Goff." Like, don't
Dude,
get me wrong, he wasn't great in this game. He still had 313 yards. Like they
but
had,
he was down the entire game. He had
yeah,
to
I
make
mean they
plays every
had to
time.
throw. Yeah, I does this game change your opinion about Goff at all?
Not me. I mean,
It
I like.
doesn't for me. I couldn't believe the outrage over the golf stuff. I mean, I think it's just casual fans like blaming,
Yeah,
taking the easy way out, I guess.
he didn't.
But
He didn't blow it in the NFC Championship game, and he didn't blow it in this game. I think
yeah,
it was mostly just. I think it was our coordinators putting our players
yeah,
in worse positions.
I
I
agree.
mean, I think if you know ball a little bit, like just a little bit, you can notice some of the bad things in this game just
Yeah,
called. So,
the coach. I think I agree
yeah,
with you. I think the coaching is to blame. I know that Dan Campbell always, after every loss, like the coaching, and whether that's true or not. That's just the kind of guy he is. But this game, I think the coaching, which the coaching
I think
is
it
what
was, but I
did us
don't
in.
blame it too much on Dan. I think
Yeah, I
I
blame it
blame
more
it
on the
most.
coordinators. Yeah.
I blame it a lot on the coordinators. I mean, Dan. I think maybe the only play I would really blame it on him would be the too many men on field, but I don't know his involvement in that. Like, I
He's
feel
got to
like
call a
that's kind of.
timeout there. He's the only coach that can call a timeout.
But I don't. I mean, I don't even know if he even knew. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he should be a little more aware of his defense, but like that's the only call I think that I could really be, missing there. But Dan, it's just the fact that he's willing to blame it all on himself, and like I know he loves his team. I'm with him in this grind for to get a Super Bowl still. People that are just saying that Dan Campbell isn't the right coach and all that. It's you clearly did not watch that game. Like
Yeah.
that was not Dan's fault
Yeah.
on most of that stuff. So
Yep. I completely agree. Moving on to some more positive. Do you have anything more to add about the offense or
just
defense in
not a fun
general?
game to watch. Just not a
It
fun
wasn't.
game
It
to
was.
watch.
We didn't even talk about golf. I mean, he got, like you said, he got knocked out of the game at one point. I thought Teddy Bridgewater was gonna have to lead us to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I forgot
Uh,
about that. I
I
mean,
mean,
it's
there's a
kind of
lot in
sick
this
that
game.
like if we're about to move on some positives. I think one positive from this is that Teddy Bridgewater went from coaching a high
Yeah.
school team to a championship to leading an NFL touchdown drive. That's pretty
In a
sick
month. Yeah.
in a month. But
All right. So moving on to a more positive thing, Jahmyr Gibbs was awesome this game. Unfortunately, I think he had 15 carries for over 100 yards.
yeah, just
Unfortunately, I mean,
insane.
at some point in the game, like he averaged seven and a half yards a carry. He had six receptions for 70 yards. But at some point, you just couldn't run the ball anymore. You just had to go for it all. And yeah, I'm not gonna say that the Lions, they're not. I think they're good from like at comebacks, but obviously they want to play the game in control, and that game is running the ball. And you know, it just just
Just got too
trying to
cute.
pick out any positives. Yeah, another one, Christian Mahogany filled in for Kevin Zeitler. He was awesome. I saw he had
Yes.
a 92 PFF grade. I saw some highlights, some clips from him, and
I don't see us
he was
getting to
awesome.
this. Oh, wait, we might later. Yeah, we might later about
Yeah,
Kevin
it's
Zeitler.
yeah.
So we'll get it to later. But
He was awesome. Graham Glasgow, my God. He had a 10 PFF pass blocking grade in this game.
jeez, oh my
Every
gosh.
Decker didn't play well either. Every time, like Graham, this is a tough conversation because
Yes.
Graham was a feel-good story. Was a Lion for a long time, came back. He was awesome last year. He wasn't good this year. I mean, at best,
No.
he was like slightly below average. I don't know. I mean, we'll talk about pending free agents coming up, but it might be time to have a conversation about Graham Glasgow because he is by far the weakest link on this offensive line. And maybe, who knows? We'll get into that later. You got anything else you want to add to this game, or do you want to move on to
I
something
want to
that?
get farther, like the furthest away from this game as possible.
All right. Are you sure
But
you
then
want to move
again,
on to
we're
our
we're
next
kind of
topic?
we're kind of going into hell right now, so
Yeah.
whatever.
All right. I'll preface this with a little personal anecdote. After the NFC Championship game last year, um, I was obviously we were all super depressed and just it was bad. The thing that pulled me out of the water was Ben Johnson returning. I remember I was just like, all right, now I'm full blast on this year, next year at the time. And unfortunately, about an hour before we started recording, it was announced that Ben Johnson took the head coaching job for the Chicago Bears. Just insult to injury. I have mixed feelings about this. I can't really blame him. I'm surprised. First of all, I'm surprised. Like I thought from what I heard, I thought the Jaguars and the Raiders were ahead of the Bears in this search.
Yeah.
But honestly, if I were to take any of these three jobs, this was the one I'd take just because the Raiders don't have a quarterback, and the Jaguars have an awful GM. But I'm shocked. I'm really surprised that he took this job. It didn't seem like he was going to.
Yeah, I saw the report and I'm like, I mean, I just saw the report. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even hear any reports about the Bears being close. Like, I mean, I've seen the Raiders like for the past few days be extremely close to signing him, and I thought he was going to be a Raider, to be
Yeah.
honest. But this is just honestly, I've heard this on a lot of like comments because I wanted to see what other Lions fans were saying, and a lot of fans were bringing up the point of like, were they just distracted this week because of coaching interviews? Like both of these coordinators? Like, I think that's a legitimate thing to
Yes.
wonder. I mean, I don't think ultimately that like they were just completely, not prepared for this game because of, coaching jobs. But I mean, it had to take some attention away from this game. And it's like they probably thought that this game might have been a given. I mean, I don't know, but
I feel like there's misdirected anger towards this. I've seen
it
people,
could
I
be.
because Ben Johnson, he just all right, right after he was hired, it was announced that he hired Dennis Allen, the old Saints coach, as a defense coordinator. And people were like, "Oh, well, maybe you should have been paying attention." Here's the thing: this is more of a league problem than anything, because that's the only chance that these playoff coaches get to talk. You know, is in last week. They don't get to get
Really?
interviews. So let's say that the Lions go to the Super Bowl. These guys might not talk to coaches until after the Super Bowl, and those are teams, and all the coaching spots are filled. Like
That's
I feel
fair.
like people are mad at Ben Johnson about this, but I mean, what is he supposed to do? This is an opportunity to talk. I mean, you could say that about anything. Like if he waited, even if he waited to talk to teams until this week and they lost, like it's just a thing that you have to deal with. I've seen a lot
Yeah.
of anger towards Ben Johnson, and it sucks, but I don't know.
I
It's
think
just
he's
it's
just
hard to be
lit.
mad at him for taking the job. It's more
Yeah.
about how it makes us feel, but I'm not necessarily mad at him.
Well, he just, I think he just left a bitter taste in my mouth. Like, and I didn't
Yeah,
expect
especially.
that. I thought he would be like, riding off in the sunset, but
Yeah,
I've never felt so bitter about something like this. Like,
yeah,
I, I mean, not that, again, I don't blame him for doing this. It's probably, the best thing for his career. And honestly, I don't know if I really wish him success anymore
no, I
because
don't. This is what
I
sucks.
don't.
Is yeah,
But like, I mean, dang, you go from like letting down an entire fan base, and it's a lot of your. I mean, it there's legitimate cases for it to be a lot of your fault, and then you move to your rival's team 2 days later, like that's bitterness, man. I mean, again, like I don't blame him, but it just leaves you with a bit of coffee breath in your mouth, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it just sucks because I wanted to root for him. I mean, he's like the best Lions coordinator, assistant coach ever, probably, like
Yeah.
you just want to root for him, but you can't. I was texting my friend who's a Bears fan and he's excited. And I'm just like, this sucks. I mean, we're gonna have to face him twice a year. And I want him, like he's been awesome for 3 years, but now I want him to just fizzle out of the league and get fired and, in a year. Cause
Yeah.
like it's nothing against him, but obviously the Bears' success would come at the expense of the Lions, right?
Well, just as he understand, or just as we understand him taking this position, he's got to understand that we want him to suck
Yeah, I mean,
straight
yeah,
up.
it's going to be interesting the matchups because I don't know if I can really think of a dynamic like that, like where such a huge coordinator went in division or I don't know. I just like I said, I'm shocked it was the Bears, but like Caleb Williams is by far the best quarterback. That Trevor Lawrence maybe, but the Jags are the Jags. But
Are you more scared of the Bears now?
yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm much more scared of a Matt or of a Ben Johnson led Bear team than like Matt Eberflus or Thomas Brown or whatever.
Now, do you think they could like here like I'm not gonna I mean, I think, this is a discussion to maybe have later, but like who do you see winning I mean, I see us winning the division next year. I mean, I think all of us could contend for it. I mean, I don't know how the Vikings are going to do this offseason or what they're going to do with their quarterback situation. I think if they keep JJ and they leave Darnold, then I would say the Vikings are safely at 4. But I said that about this year. I mean,
Yeah,
O'Connell is such a great coach, and Brian Flores is probably leaving. So I mean, I think they're at a pretty big deficit with what they're going to do next year. But I mean, the Bears could legitimately run us up.
I don't know. I think we should wait for that. Depending, they still have a long way to go. I mean,
They
the
do.
thing, Ben Johnson, in his 3 years as an offensive coordinator, he had at bare minimum, a top three offensive line, right? And the Bears have a not good offensive line, bottom quarter of the league, probably. And they still have a lot to build up over there. And Caleb, has a long way to go. He was generally disappointing this year, I would say, from what his expectations were. But I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see. There's still a lot of I mean, there's a whole off season left and how draft and free agent signings go. But yeah, just kind of uh deflating, I guess, after this. If it was the Raiders or the Jags, it wouldn't be that big of a deal to me. Or it would be a big deal, but wouldn't affect me as much. Like this just makes me just like
This
pissed.
is a
Not
bad
like
week
not
to be
not
a
at
Lions
him, but
fan.
like yeah. Yep.
It's just a
Unfortunately, this
bad
is
week.
this is what comes with being good, right? Is that's like I said, that's why I said be grateful for like live in the moment right now because with when you have expectations, when you lose, it's heartbreak and when this stuff happens. And I mean, just try and think about how the Lions had a, a assistant coach poach. Like that's never happened in my life, I don't think. So as
Yeah,
head
that's
coach.
true.
So all right. Moving to possible candidates to replace him, I have first of all, let's start with this. I think they're going to hire in-house.
Yeah.
That seems like a very Dan Campbell like thing to do, and I also think that it provides the how do I word this? Like the least transition, I guess.
Yeah.
Like the
I
most
mean,
seamless transition.
yeah, it's just a Dan Campbell thing to do. Like,
Yeah.
especially with I think it is worth saying, do you think um like we're gonna get into the names like Scotty Montgomery, like did Scotty play? Do you know?
He played in college, but so okay, let's go off the name. Let's off the names first. We got Scott. The four guys that I think are going to be it are Scotty Montgomery, who's a running backs coach, and he's the assistant head coach right now. Tanner Engstrand, who is a passing game coordinator. He is kind of on the same path that Ben Johnson was. He's a younger guy who who's on the exact same path as Ben Johnson. Antoine Randall L, the wide receivers coach, and Hank Fraley, the O-line coach. I would say that Scotty Montgomery's the favorite. He's the only
Yeah,
one that has play calling experience, like legit. He not in the NFL. He was Duke's offensive coordinator for a couple of years. He was head coach at, or he's the head coach at East Carolina, and then Maryland's offensive coordinator, all within the last like 10 years. So, and he's been interviewed too. I remember, I can't remember who interviewed him, but he's been interviewed a couple times for offensive coordinator positions. That's who I would default to. Yeah, he played in college, but I mean, just because I don't know, that's just who I feel like. Obviously, I mean, they could hire someone that we're not even talking about out of house, but
yeah.
it feels like they're gonna go in house.
Do you think being a player is going to make a difference with this decision? Because I feel like Dan. I
No,
mean,
I mean,
I,
Ben Johnson didn't play.
oh yeah, that's true. Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's legit though, because Antoine Randall and Hank Fraley were two who were on this list were two really good NFL players. And
Yeah,
like that's a huge part of, that they talked about that in Hard Knocks, right? About all these former NFL players that were on the team, or that were
yeah.
that were coaching. And I don't know. I mean, I would say Scotty Montgomery, but Hank Fraley, I mean, he interviewed for offensive coordinator job at in Seattle, and Antoine Randall has been around the league forever, and yeah. I think any of these guys, I wouldn't be surprised if they went with any of these guys, but like I said, it feels like it's going to be in-house.
Yeah, yeah. I
How
totally agree with that.
how worried are you about the transition?
I'm not too worried because I feel like again, I trust Dan Campbell 100% with this football team.
Hmm.
I trust that he's going to make the right decisions. I think sometimes, I think sometimes he bites off more than he can chew, but I think he's just trying to test his bounds.
Hmm.
Honestly, with this coordinator decision, again, I just trust him to make the right decision.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of good candidates. He's got a lot of guys in house that are good
Yeah.
candidates. So I think that's kind of what makes it for me like that it's going to be in house. He just has so many good candidates. I mean,
Hmm.
again, Scotty Montgomery, Antoine Randall L. You just told me about Tanner Engstrand and Hank Fraley. I mean, Hank Fraley's going again for head coaching positions. So when you have this, list of guys to possibly fill that role, I have trust in him to know what they can do with this offense. So
Yeah. I, Another thing is these guys have all coached, we're all coached under Ben Johnson for multiple years. So they know
yeah,
the system. I don't think the system or the type of offense is going to change that much. Obviously, there'll be some differences, but
I think the play calling will change,
I
which
mean, the play
is,
calling will, but like the emphasis on the offense, like the way
but
the
that's the
team,
thing. Could I mean, could this be a better? I mean, do you think any one of these guys could be better than Ben Johnson?
I mean, probably not. Like that's a high bar to set, but I mean, like the Lions have their offense is just so good that it would like the weapons on their offense is just so good that it's hard to envision it being bad. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
coached bad. Like no matter how bad the coaching is, like even the Lions offense struggled at the beginning of the year, but even then they were like their struggling was a mid-tier offense, right? For like
yeah.
3 games or whatever it was. So I don't know. I mean, I'm concerned somewhat, but I'm not as worried as I think other people are. Just because, like I said, I trust the coaching staff and like we both said, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd assume we hear a decision within these next couple weeks, maybe. I honestly don't even remember when these are announced. I think it's going to be relatively soon, within this next week. But
Yeah.
yeah, see if Maybe we can shut up the people who say Dan Campbell's a Ben Johnson or a coordinator merchant or a Ben Johnson merchant because I think, yeah,
for
like
sure.
I'm not really worried about too much regression in the offense. You got anything else you want to add, or do you want to look ahead to the future a little bit?
Let's go to the future.
All right, the Lions hold the 28th pick in the draft. Lions fans are in familiar territory talking about draft season. They have their second round pick too, which I would assume would be the 60th pick, if that makes sense. They do not have their third round pick because they sent that to for Giovanni Manu last year. So really, we're looking at those first and second round picks. Obviously, it's early to say, who they should pick, and we're not familiar with everyone yet. But is there any kind of positions that you think they should target that you need young pieces at?
Um, I think it's an interesting pick to hold for the Lions. I don't see them standing on this pick, if you know what I mean. Like I don't see them staying at 28. I think I think they move. But this is way too early, I guess. But honestly, like I don't think they're really high up enough to get a premier, like, a premier player.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're low enough to really like I don't think they're really low enough to just pick a guy, I guess. I don't know. Like
Yeah.
I think they could trade this pick for multiple picks in the second round. And I think that's what they're gonna do. But I think they should target line, defensive line,
Yeah,
offensive
for sure.
line. I mean, without saying, like this year has been absolute crap on those two lines. I mean, maybe not on offense, but the defensive line was just completely destroyed this year.
Yeah.
So I'd probably say D, an offensive line, possibly another guard pick. Again, Glasgow did not show up this year. I
I
think
mean, I don't think, yeah. I
it could
think
be
they'll
a
target a
legitimate
guard.
conversation.
Like they have Panay and Taylor, and then they drafted Manu basically with a third round pick. So I think if they're going to go anywhere, it'd be guard. And I agree with you. I would say defensive line because, I mean, there's no young pieces on the defensive line. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, I guess there is. Like Aiden and Pascal are going in their fourth years, so they're going to be right off their rookie contracts, and are after 2025. And then Aleem, he's not on his rookie contract anymore, so you just need young guys there. It's the same thing with offensive line. We'll see what happens with Mahogany, but even if you count Mahogany, the only like young pieces are Panay and Mahogany, and you're paying Panay top
yeah.
dollar. So even though he is young, so. I would also maybe a wide receiver.
That
I would love to see them get a not like in the first round, but
late round.
like a big body wide receiver. They kind of got that with Tim Patrick, but he's going to be a free agent, and I don't know. I don't know. This is something that like the closest thing that we had to that was DJ Chark, and DJ Chark, like he was when he was healthy, I really liked. He brought something to the offense that I don't think anyone else has. In the Dan Campbell era, like the 50-50 throw it up jump balls, So
Yeah,
yeah, obviously it's still super early. They drafted a bunch of cornerbacks, obviously no running backs, maybe a linebacker in the later rounds as a depth piece, but they don't need, I don't think they have to focus on one position, which is nice. Like last year they had to focus on cornerback, right?
yeah,
That was the need. This year, I mean, the defensive line is aging, but it's not like I, if it holds, it's going to be Aiden Hutchinson, Zadarius Smith, DJ Reader, and Ali McNeil, and that could be the
yeah,
best defensive line in the NFL. It probably would be on paper. So
yeah, for sure.
yeah, I don't know. And like you said, Brad, he loves to trade. So I, yeah, I mean, I think he's probably traded every single year, like his first or second round
Yeah.
pick every single year in the draft. So. Yeah, I mean, we still have a long way to go, but those are just some positions to target. And obviously it depends on free agents. You want to move on to some of those guys.
Do you want to like do keep or like
Yeah,
not
like
keep
keep or
basically?
not keep. Yeah, basically.
Okay, what about Tim Patrick?
This is kind of interesting because I feel like I mean, he is older, but I feel like he could have a bigger role on another team and probably get a
Yeah.
bigger contract. I would keep him for like a couple $1 million, but like, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think if he tries to like go higher with his negotiations, I think they should stay low on the negotiations.
Yeah. And that's why
I
maybe they
mean,
should draft like a like a replacement for him, I guess.
yeah. I mean, I don't think it would be like I wouldn't be against bringing him back because obviously I think he's a big locker room guy too. I mean, everybody loves him on that team. I remember how hyped we both were when he scored two touchdowns and scored his first touchdown. I
Hmm.
love him as a player, and he has sure hands most of the time. He like
Yeah.
he does well in those situations. I think sometimes he's just a little slow. I mean, he's kind of like the Sam Laporta type, but
Hmm.
for me, I wouldn't mind signing him back, but just don't pay too much for him. Like I wouldn't like reach for him at all. Like if he raises like once or twice, I wouldn't keep him.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I just don't know because he wasn't a free agent. That was the thing. Like, not
Yeah.
a proper free agent. He was just cut. He was a training camp cut for the
Hmm.
Broncos. So he never really tested the market. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I would love to see him back, but all right, Kevin Zeitler.
This is an interesting one to me. Honestly, like I just don't want to pay too much. Like that's my big thing about this offseason because our cap is probably a lot lower than what we usually are
So
at.
the cap is good this year, but that's because a lot of the contracts don't kick in. But like the
Yeah,
golf contract. But I mean, in like 2027, it's like obviously they'll move money around, but it looks like they have a ton of money this year, but they're not going to sign a DJ, even a DJ Reader type free agent.
I
Because they just
think
have to pay in-house guys.
I think Kevin Zeitler might tell them this year that this next year is going to be his last year. If that's the case, sign him again.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't sign him if he has aspirations to go more than 1 year.
Yeah. Another thing is he might follow Ben Johnson. I mean, Chicago needs offensive line help and they have a ton of, so that's
That's
something.
true.
I mean, but then again, he's older. He came from the Ravens. He's probably ring chasing. I don't know.
Yeah, but who
This is
better
the
to
thing with
ring
the Graham
chase than
Glasgow.
the
Like,
Lions?
I just wish that we didn't sign Graham Glasgow to a 2-year contract. So, you could like you could keep Zeitler and Mahogany, but I mean, you're gonna have to pay Graham either way. But yeah, because
I would
he
say,
was only signed for like $6 million last year, which is I mean he was one of the best guards in the NFL this year. I couldn't
yeah,
believe how cheap we got him.
I would say
So
if the only way I would sign him would be for a 1 year contract.
yeah, for
That's it.
sure.
Because
Yep.
again, we have Mahogany. I think that's a good card to play. It's like, look, we have Mahogany. We can replace you. You know, like I mean, he might not be an All Pro yet, but I mean, he Mahogany's been playing really good. I don't think I've really
Yeah.
seen him get blown up. So
Yeah, I would like to see him be a starter next year. And
yeah,
like I said, unfortunately, I wish that would come at Graham's disposal rather than Zeitler's, but who knows? I mean, they originally signed Graham to be a backup offensive lineman, if you remember, at the beginning of 2023. Vaitai, throwback. Vaitai was supposed to be the starter, so maybe they just spend a little extra to get a above average six offensive lineman.
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. All right, Levi.
This one, I feel like he's going to demand more money this year because he's had a pretty decent year.
I don't know.
I can't, I can't pay him too much. Like
I
that's the
don't think
thing.
he'll get paid a ton. I mean,
I feel like 2 mil a year is not bad. I feel like 2 mil a year is reasonable.
yeah, I just because of the injury history, and he still was a. I mean, he was a really good he was really good, but he was a depth piece. And honestly, like you have to remember all the stuff that he went through with this organization too. Like if the Lions would have cut him, no one would have batted an eye with his injury history and
Yeah,
everything. So yeah,
that's
I'd love
true.
to see him back. Uh, but Yeah,
He's a good depth.
I want him back, but I don't like I said, I don't think he'll command more than a couple million a year. But there's a guy that I
After
like to
the
see back.
injuries, after the injuries of this year, I think they should bring him back because he's
Yeah.
a great depth piece. But
Yeah,
that's
I
the
think they
thing.
should too.
Like,
Because he can play all up and down the offensive or defensive line too.
yeah,
So, all right, John Kaminsky. It's kind of a weird one because we haven't seen him in over a year.
I would sign him. I mean, you're probably going to get him for cheap. And again, he could be another depth piece. So I think you need all the depth you can get on the line to this point.
Yeah,
Like, I
this
get
is
that
like
you're not going to have the injuries next year, but I mean, you could. Like, you need to be prepared for that better this year, I think. But
this is a guy that I wouldn't mind letting him see walk. He wasn't even
I,
really great last year.
yeah,
Like
I
if
wouldn't
you can
mind.
sign him for like a contract where it's like the thing is I don't know like they have so many players that are like could be decent, but like if you could sign him for like a low guaranteed deal unless he makes the roster, I'd like that. But I don't know if I love locking him onto the roster.
Yeah, I wouldn't lock him. I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, I wouldn't mind letting him go, but I think he could. I mean, I think he can help us for sure. So
Yeah.
that's just
All right.
my thing.
Marcus Davenport.
Absolutely not.
Really?
Nope. Nope.
Here's my thing. They should sign him
Kick him to the curb.
to a 1 year deal and just save him for the playoffs.
You
All
can't
right.
do that.
Okay. Seriously, okay. So the deal that he got signed to was basically for nothing, and it was just an incentive deal. And
Hmm.
it'd be as to play X amount of games, and he didn't reach that, so the Lions basically paid him nothing. I would be absolutely fine doing that again. The problem that I had with this signing is that they didn't have a backup plan for this. Like
Yeah,
this was
that's
like the
true.
only pass rusher that they signed. So maybe you bring back Kaminsky and Davenport and like because he was good in like the 3 games that he played. I was really impressed with him, but just the same kind of incentive deal. Like if he plays, if you put in the contract, like he gets paid $5 million if he plays 13 games. Because if he plays 13 games, he's going to be worth that money. So because he's a good pass rusher, he's just never healthy. I think this is someone that they bring back just because of the connections in the organization. Well, I mean, who knows? Because Glenn, he might follow Glenn. I didn't really think about that. Like if Glenn goes to the Jets or the Saints, he might just end up going there. I mean,
I just, I think he'd be a waste of money to me.
yeah. All right, Derek Barnes.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think Derek Barnes could be again the third linebacker. So I'd
Yeah,
bring him back for
he's
sure.
really the only successful outside linebacker that the Lions have had who can rush the passer and drop back in
Yes.
coverage, which is valuable. And as much as it sucks that he got injured, that probably, I mean, not probably, it helped the Lions' case for getting him back because he got injured in the NFC Championship game last year. He like broke his hip, and
Yeah.
so he was injured all off season, and then he comes back, and I don't even remember. We had so many injuries. I can't even remember what it is, what he did, but whatever he did, and um, like I can't see him commanding too much money, and just because of those injuries, as much as it sucks, and you'll see this is the theme with injured players because Brad Holmes loves injured players, probably because they come cheap, but
Yeah.
he is someone that I like to see. All right, the big one. This is going to be the biggest free
Yes.
agent that they have, Carlton Davis.
Huge debate to go on. I would not mind seeing him go, and I wouldn't mind him signing, to be honest. I am so two-sided on this. Um
Yeah, me too. I'm
I
right there
just
with
don't
you.
want honestly, I just don't want him to spend a lot of money. But I mean Carlton, he's getting up there in age, but he had such a great season. I I wouldn't mind if we signed him back. But you got to remember, we have Rakestraw in the back. We have, we still have
Tarian.
Robertson. We have Terrion. I mean, we have these guys. Carlton would be a great buffer zone, though. Like, I mean, Carlton would be the number one, but like, Rakestraw would be a great buffer between Terrion and Vildor. I don't want to see Vildor on a Lions football field ever again. I
Yeah.
can't stand him.
He's a
I
guy I
mean,
honestly debated putting him in this list, but I'm like, eh.
I don't want to see him ever again.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird spot because there's a log jam. Ennis Rakestraw kind of gets pushed to the curb if Carlton
Yeah,
Davis gets re-signed, right? And but at the same time, if you don't sign me, you have Amik Robertson, Terry Arnold, and Ennis Rakestraw are your three corners. Probably Ennis. I don't know. Ennis plays nickel, or I don't know, or Amik, one of the two. But that's like a hat. Like Amika's a decent corner, but he's your CB1. Then you have two rookies, and one guy that's basically gonna be a rookie. Like he's a
yeah,
second year player, but didn't play at all. I don't know. I don't know which corners are available. I just maybe they should let Carlton go. I think that they should get like a cheaper corner that's more established, maybe. But then again, I just you don't want to risk this. Like having a number
yeah.
one corner is just so important. I go back and forth on this one because he's not going to be cheap. He's going to be what, like 15 million a year. Like,
That's
and
what I mean.
he's a guy who's this is the twilight of his career. Like, it, this is probably the biggest contract that he's going to get. So he probably would want a long-term deal. And corners are so coveted that another team would probably give him a 3 year deal, 2 year, 3 year deal.
Do you think he'll take a little bit of a pay cut because he knows he can win with them?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It,
I don't think it's
I'm torn on
reasonable
whether
to
I
like
want him back,
expect
but
that.
if I had to predict, I'd say that he wouldn't be back. I think the price tag's going to be too steep.
Yeah,
But all right, another injury-ridden player, Ifatu Melifonwu. What do you think?
I think you let him go.
I
Unfortunately,
don't think he'll be. I think he'll be cheap once again. I mean, he's been good, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Uh,
if he's cheap, keep him, but you might have to let him go.
I think you have
Honestly,
to
the
keep him though, because who's going to be like? It's Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch at safety. There was
that's
no one
true.
else. There's no one else. Brandon Joseph wasn't even good, and he's not even on the team anymore. And like, yeah,
Yeah, fair point.
yeah. I mean, of course they can sign like guys from out of like off the street, basically, like off another team. But I think if he's a guy that they want back, I mean, the guy that they drafted, but like I said, it's
I
because of the
trust
injuries.
him.
He wouldn't be expensive at all. Like I think a couple $1 million.
I think this might be kind of a like a hot take, but I don't know. Depending on this, but I trust him more blitzing off the edge than Branch. I think he's the best safety to blitz off the edge.
Yeah, but that's such a niche role.
That is a niche thing, but
But he's good at
like he
he's
could be a
good when he's on the
legitimate backup.
field. He's really
He
good
could
when
be a
he's on the field,
legitimate.
honestly, at everything he does.
Yeah,
And I'd like to see him back, but I don't know. They just have a bunch of middling guys, and I don't think they'll sign all of them. But if he was a guy that I'd like to see back, uh, there's a couple other guys. I'll just look at the pending free agents. Skipper's one. Like I didn't put him on there just because where else would he go? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
he'll probably be back. There's not going to be a team that wants him, or that is dying to get him. Uh, who else? Kyle Pecco would be a depth piece. Um, Kindle Vildor, we already talked about that. I don't really have any interest.
He's a depth piece. I wouldn't even want him as a depth piece.
No,
He
maybe on
could
the
he
practice
could
squad.
I don't even want him on the pet practice squad. I want him off of the grounds of the Detroit Lions. I don't want him to come back in the state of Michigan.
Emmanuel Mosley. That was one that I had no idea. Like, just where does he
Oh
go from
yeah.
here? He didn't play at all. I mean,
I,
he hasn't played in 3 years, and he was
I
good.
he could legitimately retire. I would
Yeah, he
not
could
be
be out of the
surprised.
NFL, but I mean, he could. He's a weird player because he's not going to get more than a minimum contract with like low guaranteed money.
Yeah.
I guess bring him back just like you did last year. Al-Qadim Muhammad, this was a guy who was signed off the couch basically, and this is I want him back. I thought that he played really good, and
I want him back too.
not even for like oh like he gave us a couple sacks. Like he was honestly pretty consistent,
He was
and
a premier player in a few games.
yeah he had a really good season. I was really impressed with him. And the last guy, Khalil Dorsey, I don't know why he wouldn't be back. This is like a guy,
Yeah.
he's a core special teamer. The Lions value that. And I just, unless another team wants him really bad. He's a guy that I'd like to see back. That's
Yeah.
really it. Yeah, that's it for the all the important free agents. Yeah, anything
I
else
think
you want to talk to?
we'll be able to gauge it a little further on, I
Yeah,
think,
I
if
mean, this is
nothing
just
else.
a, I want to look ahead towards something, and
Yeah.
fortunately, unlike another team that lost this weekend, all of the Ravens, uh, like this team's isn't in panic mode, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this is the they're going to the third year of their, I mean, this is the
Contending
second
phase.
true year of their Super Bowl window.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, this, I mean, they're going into their third year. Like they weren't even in 2023, they weren't projected to win the Super Bowl by any means. They were projected to be a good team, but this is really the second year that we're like, okay, this team is has real Super Bowl expectations. Dan's a good coach. He's going to raise the floor, even if the coordinators aren't good or aren't
Yeah.
as impressive as you want them to be. He's going to raise the floor of the team just because the coach he is. And Brad Holmes is I'm sorry, he's the best damn GM in the NFL. So
Yes, he is. Screw
yeah,
out. Screw Howie Roseman.
no, Howie Roseman is good, but man, Brad Holmes,
He's a
wow,
draft merchant.
yeah. No, well, that makes it sound like it's a bad thing. Oh, wait, Howie Roseman's a
Whatever.
draft merchant? Or are you saying
Yes.
Brad Holmes? Well, so is Brad Holmes. I mean, Brad Holmes is the best drafter in the NFL.
Yes, but he can. I don't know. Maybe that
Yeah.
was a bad point, but whatever.
No. Either way. All right. You got anything else you want to talk about Lions wise, or do you want to wrap this up with our picks for next weekend?
It was a good season. It was the best season. I don't think we should look back on this season as failed. I don't think it was a failed season. It was the best season in Lions history. It just ended bitterly in the most bitter way possible to me. That's just how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever seen that video of Giannis when the reporter asked him, was this a successful season? And he got all mad and was like, "What do you mean? Like just because we win it, like doesn't mean a successful season." But like, there's that video of Giannis, and I keep going back to that because like it was as impressive as you can get in the regular season. But if you don't win a game in the playoffs,
Yeah,
this almost feels like it was a wasted season, even though they went 15
it
and 2.
does. But I think
Just
I'm going to
because,
look back on this year and say this was one of the most fun years I've had
yeah, I
watching
mean, it
Lions
was
football.
awesome, but yeah, I mean, you know why Dan Campbell was saying after the NFC Championship game last year that like you don't know if you'll ever get back here, right? It's so hard to because the NFL, there's so much variance. But you know, I'm not I'm disappointed for
I
this
see what
year,
you're
but
saying.
I'm not like down on the future of this team. Like I think
Yeah,
they're gonna probably yeah, I think they're gonna be favorites to win the NFC again. Or not
yeah,
again because they weren't this year, but I think they will be next year. Them or the Eagles will probably be head to head, but yeah, I mean, sucky end of the season, but there aren't many organizations that you'd rather be other than the Lions, maybe the Chiefs, but other than that, I
yeah,
mean, the future's really bright.
for
All right,
sure.
moving on to game picks for the championship weekend. All right, first of all, are you going to be watching these games?
Um, I think like the day after the Lions game, I just couldn't watch football.
Yeah, I get that. I
Um,
force myself to.
I think these games are going to be good games. I might watch them. I don't know if I have other things to do. I'm not going to burden myself to watch them. But
Yeah, the NFC Championship game is going to be hard to watch.
yes, yes, it will
But
be.
who do you
Who do
got?
you got
Eagles,
in this game?
Commanders.
Well, I just
Uh,
asked
all
you.
right, all right. I'm going with the Commanders. I really think I'm rooting for the Commanders to win it all. I
Same.
said this right after I said that night. I'm like they beat us. They were the better team. I respect them. It's a fun story, and I think it comes down to Jalen Hurts versus Jaden Daniels. And Jalen Hurts, I mean, he's just not been good. Like he just,
Yeah.
I mean, carried, just flat out carried at the in these last few games. And I don't know. I mean, seeing how Jane Daniels picked apart the Lions, I know that the Eagles defense is more talented, with all the Lions injuries and stuff, but I don't know. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think the Commanders are gonna go to the Super Bowl, but it's crazy to think about. But I think the Commanders are gonna win. I think this is gonna be a good game though.
insane to think. I think the Eagles are going to win this game, but I pray, I hope and pray the Commanders win this game. Like I think the Eagles win this game just based off their defense.
Yeah,
I think their defense can drag them through this game. That's the thing. I think if you can drag Jalen Hurts through this game, and plus they have motivation since they lost to him in a bitter way in
yeah,
Washington. I'm not going to say that's like the only reason they have motive to win this game, but I think that plays a big part. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
so
I mean,
and
they're
plus
division rivals, so
I think they're more equipped to handle Jalen Hurts too because they've had to plan for him twice this year. So,
hmm. Jalen Hurts or Jaden Daniels?
oh, Jaden Daniels, jeez.
Okay, I
But
was about to
yeah,
say.
that's like I mean the Commanders can try to handle Jalen Hurts too a little more just because they're divisional rivals. But
Yeah.
I, I I mean I think the Commanders defense fell into the favor of bad play calling in this last Lions game and just poor
Hmm.
execution.
Yeah.
I don't know
But
if
I
they'll
mean,
fall into that
you're talking
in
about
this.
the Nick Sirianni coach team though. Like if Dan Quinn out coaches Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson, and Aaron Glenn, like you think he's not gonna out coach Nick Sirianni? That's just where I'm at right now.
I don't know if it's going to come down to coaching though. To
Yeah,
me, I just
yeah,
think that the Eagles are a better team, so I'll just go with
yeah,
the Eagles. But I hope the Commanders play it.
yeah,
I hope the Commanders win the darn Super Bowl. I don't care, like even if they just make it. I want them to win the Super
yeah.
Bowl.
I do not
So
want
I
the
think
Eagles to
everybody
win.
does.
Nope.
Yeah,
I honestly, like, I would rather have the Chiefs win than the Eagles. I do not like the
yeah.
Eagles. All right, Bills at Chiefs.
I hate this so much, dude. I hate this. I have to go Chiefs.
Yeah, me too. The winner of this game wins the Super Bowl, in my opinion.
Really. I
I,
think
I,
that's fair. That's fair.
I think, yeah, I don't know. I think the winner of this game wins the Super Bowl. I think both of these teams are a lot better than the
I
other two
just I just
teams in
can't
the
trust the
NFC.
Bills to win this game. I just can't trust the Bills to win this game. But if they do, Commanders Bills Super Bowl, I think
Yeah, that'd be
that's as
awesome.
I think that's as good as a Super Bowl can get, other than Bills Lions.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Chiefs are going to win too. It's hard to bet on the Bills against the Chiefs in the playoffs. The Chiefs have beaten them literally every single time. So
Yeah.
it's just hard to bet against the Chiefs in general. I think the Chiefs win this game, but I think it'll be a good game. And like I said, I think the winner of this game, not easily, but I would confidently say they're going to win the Super Bowl. Um,
Yeah.
Hopefully it's the Bills though. I'd like to see the Bills win. Bill, like you said, Bills versus Commanders Super Bowl would be awesome.
Yeah.
Quite the opposite of like the crappy Super Bowl, the Chiefs Niners we got last year.
Yeah.
So, or Chiefs Eagles, the year before. But all right, you got anything else about the NFL, or you want to reminisce about this game anymore? Or you,
I don't want to think about this game
yeah, me neither.
for a long time. Honestly, I'm looking forward to Tiger season. I've already got everything picked out in my head. I want to talk
Yeah,
about it sometime, but
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, and all the Detroit sports teams, they're all in decent shape. The Red Wings are making a push. The Pistons are on track to be in the play-in, and
the Pistons are
hopefully,
actually winning,
yeah.
like for
And
once.
Alex Bregman hopefully will be a Tiger soon. Hopefully.
Yes,
That
I
was the one
yes,
thing I told you. That was the one thing that night when they lost. I'm like, if Alex Bregman is a Tiger, that will be. I mean, I'll still be mad about this game, but like that'll make me feel a lot better.
yeah. I mean that. Well, I don't know if you guys know this, but I mean I know you know this, but Anthony Santander signed with the Blue Jays, so the Tigers they don't really have a backup plan now. They got to go
No.
for Alex Bregman. So I would I think they have to go all in on him because
Yep.
it's either him or Jace Young or
Yep.
Matt Vierling. So
I love me some Matt Vierling.
oh yeah.
All right. Like I said, hopefully the Tigers sign Alex Bregman. Even if they did it now, it would make us feel a lot better. Hopefully all the Detroit sports teams make up for the
Yeah.
Lions collapse in the playoffs. Maybe we get another Tigers type run again from one of these teams. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that wraps it up. I don't know when we'll be back, but hopefully it'll be talking about new coordinator hires or whatever that may be. So in the meantime, go Lions.
Go Lions.